This week we're going to be doing Project 4, which is Consumer Infographics. We'll be making a line graph and a bar graph. These are very useful if you work for any type of corporation or client that needs these, and they're very powerful, so let's get started. So this week you need to unzip the folder called Coffee. I've already unzipped mine here, and you can see you have some data, an AI file, and then an AIT file. That stands for Adobe Illustrator Template. So in Illustrator, we're going to say File, Open, and go find that. And click on this template file, say Open. And we need to make sure we're in the right workspace, Window Workspace, Essentials Classic. To get this centered, you just double click on the little hand and double click on the little zoom to make sure we're right in the middle, and we are ready to go. So the first one we're going to make is a line graph. In this, it should be the first one right here. You can click and hold down and make sure that you have the line graph tool. Just click and drag within the little guidelines. If you do not see the guidelines, go to View and make sure that you can see them. And it's going to pop up this little spreadsheet type of thing. We'll make it a little bit bigger if you'd like. I'm going to click on this first one right here that says Import Data. And it's going to ask what kind of data we have. So think about if we had a really big spreadsheet that had been sent to us from our client. So let's go back and find our files that we downloaded from the book. Go right here into Data. And we're going to get the one called Prices and say Open. Now it's already taken all of the stuff that was in there and it downloaded us into this to make a chart out of the data. Go ahead and click on this little check mark and it's going to apply that data. Now that really doesn't look like anything right now, so we've got to kind of change it. So we're going to go through and let it know that these things right here, these are actually data. So click on the first one and it's going to pop up here in the top little white box, and you're just going to put quotation marks around it. Quotation 2012 and then another quote and hit enter. And it's going to immediately pop you down to the next one. Quotation 2013, quotation, enter. It's going to pop down to the next one. If we were to hit the check mark, we would see that it's taken those away and actually made them data. So let's keep going. We're at 2014, enter. We're going to click right here. This is the cell style and tell it we need it to have 3 decimal points. Column width of 7 digits is fine and hit OK. Go ahead and apply that by clicking the check mark. And you will see that we've told all of this is actual data and it's put it down here and then put it into the graph. Go ahead and click the X to say that we are done with this. It might ask you if you want to save, just say yes. Now we need to go ahead and save this entire file. Go to File, Save As. We're going to put it in that Work in Progress folder that we made last time right here. And let's go ahead and call it what needs to be called when we turn it in, which is your last name, price graph. Normally I had told you to call it Illustrator 4 or whatever chapter we're on, but you're actually going to be turning in different things. So let's give them the actual name. So your last name, price graph, hit Save. So go grab the regular selection tool and just make sure that your graph is selected. We're going to tell it what type of font we want to use. We're going to be using the Against the Clock fonts that we loaded onto your system before. It wants ATC Onyx. So go down and find your ATC Onyx. We're going to make it 9 points. And if you can't see all of this right here in character, just click the little More Options button right here. And we need to make sure right here, this is the horizontal scale, click 90. And you can see that fits a lot better in what we're doing. Now that we've got the font looking better, you're going to click once with the selection tool, right click, and you see all of these different choices down here. You're going to choose Type, And when this pops up, for graph options, you're going to choose value axis. So we're changing the way it looks right now. Let me move it off to the side if we can see it better. Right here for length, I'm going to say full width. And we're going to add labels to it. So let me move this over here. The prefix is what is before things, and then the suffix is at what is after things. So it's asking us what we want to be here. We're going to put a $ there. And then for suffix, we don't want anything. We just want a $. So hit the, so for prefix, put a $. For suffix, put 0. And hit OK. And you can see over here that it has put a $sign before all of our main information. Now it didn't put down here because this was our original data. This we just told it was data, and so we didn't tell it to change that. Let's go ahead and save, Control S. Now normally when we have made something, for instance, I'm just going to make a rectangle over here. We could just grab it and start moving it around and changing it and scaling it and all kind of stuff. You can't just do that with a graph because it's got a bunch of data in it. But you can use the transform tools. With your selection tool, make sure that your graph is selected, and then we're going to go to the scale tool, which is right here underneath the eraser tool. So click on the scale tool. So double click on the scale tool, make sure it's on uniform, and we're going to say we want it to be at 90% and hit OK. And you see it has made it smaller. Now you might have noticed over here in our properties panel that it has now changed this to 8 points and 8.1 points instead of 9 points. So we do want it to be exactly 9 points. Grab your selection tool, click this, click on your graph, and then we need to change this to be actually 9 points again. Now this should be selected already. Make sure that the whole thing is selected. And we can nudge it over so that this 2%, so that the $2 stuff is all inside. And let's bring it up just a little bit. So everything is inside there. So now we're going to click off of this so that it unselects it, and we're going to grab the direct selection tool. The difference between these two is the selection tool is going to select the whole thing. The direct selection tool selects only part of objects, and it can even select just one point of an object. So click your mouse and drag down to get this entire little legend thing, and then grab by the words is the easiest place to grab it, and let's just move it off the screen because we're going to do something with that later. Go ahead and save again, Control S. And let's zoom in a little bit, Alt, scroll your mouse. Now you should still be in the direct selection tool, which is the white one. We need to just select this 1 point. You see how it turns red? That means that we've got just that 1 point, nothing else is selected. And we're going to double click on the scale tool again and make that 300 uniform. And you're going to go and do that with all the rest of these points. So get the direct selection tool, click, double click on scale. It's going to remember the 300, so you can just say OK. So if we use the regular selection tool, it would have selected the whole thing and made the whole thing 300 times bigger. So once you've got that, I'm going to save. And then let's go and open up our layers panel. Now so far we've only been messing with the graph, but they've given us a bunch of other things. Let's turn the eyeball on for design elements. And if you don't see any, it's just over to the side. We're going to be dealing with this one right here. Get your regular selection tool and select just this little coffee cup. We're going to go to Object, Graph, it's down here at the bottom, and Design. We're going to say New Design, and because we had that selected, it's going to put our coffee cup into this new design. If you didn't have it selected, it's not going to work. Go back and select it and do that again. Now let's rename this coffee cup and hit OK and hit OK again. So we have put that into our graph, but we have to now assign it somewhere. With your selection tool, just click on the graph in general, right click, and say marker. We're going to grab coffee cup and say OK. And it took all our little coffee cups and put them on all of our markers. So instead of that ugly black box, we now have a cool little coffee cup. So select anywhere off of that to deselect it. And let's kind of move back over here and zoom in, Alt, scroll your mouse, until you can see just this top here. So now we need to grab just these lines. So I'm going to grab my direct selection tool, and I'm just going to click and drag down from about right here and just get these lines in it. Now you may have to try it a few times. Don't accidentally get any of this involved. Just make sure just the lines. You can see all of the lines have red on them. We've grabbed all of the main lines. So we need to change the stroke from 1 point to 0.5. Made it a little bit smaller. Now we need to double click on the stroke right here, and it's going to bring up our color picker. We need to make this a 20% black. So with CMYK, K stands for black. So just make this 20 and hit OK. If we select away from it now, you can see it's made them smaller and it's made it kind of go more into the background. So now we need to change this font a little bit. We're going to grab the direct selection tool, just click and drag to get these. And we're going to click on this and change it to white. I know you can't see it. We're going to put a background on it in a minute. And let's grab the bottom ones. And we're going to change those to white also. And I'm moving around the board just using my space bar and holding it down to get the hand tool, then let go of the space bar. We're still in the direct selection tool. We need to select this first little line. To add to the selection, we're going to click Shift and add all of the other lines. Just keep Shift held down while you click on all these little lines. The click and drag isn't going to work right now because we would get all the coffee cups. We don't want to change them right now. Now that we've got all these selected, we need to change this to 1.5 points. And we need to change our stroke color to white. And you might be wondering why the book has us doing this. We can't see anything. So go back over to the layers panel and you will see that they actually have a background. If we turn that on, now we can see everything again. We also have a heading, so turn that on. And let's see, the heading is up at the top. If we grab the direct selection tool and double click on it, you'll see that our little cursor appears to change this font. So just highlight all of it, and we need to change it to say average coffee prices. Go ahead and save. That looks pretty good. We can now go and turn off these design elements. And we are now done with that pretty decent little graph. You can go ahead and close that. Yes, let's save it. All right, we're going to open back up our template again, File Open. Chalkboard, open up the chalkboard template. Double click here, and this time we're going to make a different type of graph. So over in the graph tool, click on it and we need to get the bar graph tool and then draw it just like we did before. This is going to pop up again. This time we're going to click right here to import data, and we're going to get the data called reasons. So all of this is fine right now. Go ahead and say apply and close this. Now all of this is still selected. If it's not, then click it with the If it's not, then click it with the selection tool, but I can see that everything is selected. Let's go ahead and scale this. So we're going to double click on the scale tool and tell it 90% uniform. While this is still selected, let's go ahead and change the font. This time we're going to go ATC Onyx. Nine points. And our horizontal scale is 90%. You can use the little arrows on your computer to kind of nudge this and make sure that the actual graph is inside the lines. Don't worry about these words right now. Just make sure that the actual graph is inside the blue lines. Grab your selection tool and then right-click and choose Type. For right here where it says Graph Options, you're going to choose Value Axis. So the value is all this wake up. The value is all this 100% stuff. We need to tell it we want no tick marks, those little marks at the bottom. You also need to click Override Calculated Views. And for divisions, type 4. Now this time we were dealing with the value, which is the stuff at the bottom. Now we need to do with the categories, which would be wake up, stay awake. So click on Category Axis. And right here in the tick marks, say None. And let's save this. So File, Save As. We're going to put it in our Work in Progress folder. And call this your last name. Reasons graph. Let's open up the Layers panel and turn on the design elements. These are the same design elements that we used before. So with your selection tool, grab these coffee beans. So then we're going to go to Object, Graph, Design. We're going to create a new design, and then we're going to rename this coffee beans. And hit OK. With your selection tool, you're going to click once, then right-click and say Column. We want to choose coffee beans to be inside of our column and hit OK. And you can see it's taken those and put them in there, but they look kind of wonky right now. Let's fix them. So let's get back into that tool. With the selection tool, just select once, right-click, say Column. Then on column type, you're going to say Repeating. You're going to say each design represents 50 units. And for fractions, we need to chop the design. What it's doing right now, it's kind of scaling it, and that's why it looks weird. We just need to just chop off anything that is not used after these things. So repeating, 50, and chop design. Hit OK. That looks a lot better. Let's save. Now with the selection tool, right-click and choose Data. So this is the data that we had, and we used this in the first one. We need to add one more. The client is called, and we're going to add one more. So here under Health Benefits, we're going to just add a new one. Social Experience. So I just clicked on the one right beneath Health Benefits, and then I typed Social Experience up in the top. We're going to click right next to Social Experience, and it's going to be 215. Go ahead and hit Enter. And because we had already told it how many decimal points, it gave us all of that stuff on there. So go ahead and close this. and then select anywhere to unselect this entire thing. Now remember, the direct selection tool will just select parts of things. So let's get this direct selection tool and just click on this one line, shift, and click on the second line. So you can see those are red. We have selected the bottom line and the up and down line. Let's change that to be 5.5 points. And we need the stroke to be 20%. So once again, down here, double click and make the K 20%. Select off of it. We're going to grab all these categories and let's click right here in paragraph and make this left aligned text. So you can see it aligned them all up. You can now grab all of them at one time and move them right above each line. After we've done that, let's change the fill color to white. This time, let's do it over here in properties. So just click on fill and change that to white. Once again, I can't see it. So we're going to go to layers and turn on our background and our heading. Now I'm seeing that mine is really, really close to that edge. So I just want to grab this whole thing and move it down just a tad. That looks better to me. Now with the direct selection tool, we need to grab these and change them to white. And let's go to the heading. Double click on the heading with the selection tool. And we need to change that to say, why do you drink coffee? And you are done making the bar graph. So file, save. And we're done with that one. If you want to close it, make sure it kind of looks good. You might want to move it over a little bit. I think mine's over to the left a little bit. That looks better. Okay, we can go ahead and close that one and move on to the next one. Go ahead and open up that same one again. Chalkboard, hit OK. This time we're going to be drawing a pie graph. So grab the pie graph tool and draw it to fill that little section. This is going to pop up and we need to get the one called favorites for data. So click right here for data and go find the one called favorites.txt. Let's go ahead and apply that by clicking on the check mark. And you can see it's already given us all of that data and made it into this chart. Go ahead and close that one down and then select anywhere off of it so that you can see that's our new pie chart. So let's grab the direct selection tool and open up our swatches. Now, if you open up your swatches and you don't see any of the swatches that the book is talking about, it just means it didn't load them. It should load them automatically. Mine didn't, so I'm going to show you how I get it. We did this last time. I'm going to click right here in the hamburger menu and say, Open Swatch Library, Other Library, and go find it from my files, that chalkboard that we just used. Once I opened that, this was here. It should be there for most of you. This is the one we're going to use. I'm going to go ahead and dot mine right here so I see where it is. So with the direct selection tool, let's go ahead and select the one in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to make this the lightest brown that the book has given us. So the one that's right next to the black. Then go ahead and select each one individually and make them progressively just use up all these other colors. Now, because we grabbed this with the direct selection tool, we were just getting little parts of it. If we'd used the other selection tool, it would have made the entire pie that size. It would have made the entire pie that color. So let's grab the selection tool, select anywhere off of it and then select it once, that we're getting the entire thing. So this over here is the legends. This, like if you have a map and there's a legend on the side that tells you what things mean. We need to change the way it is so that it's not over there, that it's actually on the pie chart. So right click and we're going to say type. And right here where it says standard legend, that's what we have now. We want to say legend is inside the wedges. So hit OK and you will see how it changes. It actually took all this over here and put it inside the wedges of each of them. Let's go ahead and save this. File, save as. Robert's favorite graph. Of course, put your name, not mine, last name and favorites graph. So make sure you're in the selection tool. We're going to right click and say data to bring this back up. So now basically we can see the legend, but we need to bring these numbers up. So right next to Mocha, just click once, space, you're going to put this long line, and then whatever it says down there at this point, 12%. %. 12%. Now we're going to go and put all of these numbers actually up on there. If you click the check mark, you will see it's actually added it into the pie chart. So for latte, and hit the little check mark, and you'll see it's added them all in there. You can now close this data panel by just hitting the X. Open up your layers panel, and let's turn on the design elements. For this one, we need to get the selection tool and grab this big cup of coffee and just drag it and put it kind of underneath here. Now we can lock that so that we don't accidentally move it. Go ahead and drag this down so that the top layer is meeting that, the top layer of your pie is meeting the coffee cup. And let's grab that scale tool we've been using. This time just click on it once so we get the actual tool. With the scale tool, you're going to click and drag upwards. And you can see mine was kind of popping around. You have to just kind of, it's like driving a car. You just kind of do it until it looks about right. Let's go ahead and move this up so we can see it better. And once you get it set there, once you get it set in the right place, you can grab your scale tool and continue to mess with it until it looks right. Grab the left and right edges. Once you get it pretty good, you can use the selection tool to get it set right. That looks nice. Now we already have this selected. Let's go change our fonts to be right. So let's go into our character tool. You can either do it right here or you can open up Window Character. We need to change it to ATC Onyx. Nine points. 100% should be fine. 100% right here. Now select anywhere off of it, and with the direct selection tool, just go grab one of them, and you're just going to kind of pull it off to the side. Once again, click one of them. With the direct selection tool, click one and drag it off to the side so that it lines up, but it's outside the coffee cup. Let's go ahead and turn on background and heading, And you can see I've got all of my stuff just a little bit too far up. So I know all of this is on the graph layer, right? So I'm just going to go and get the direct selection tool, make sure I have the graph layer selected, and I'm going to use my arrow keys to kind of pull everything down a little bit. Now, unfortunately, it didn't move my coffee mug. Unlock that, grab my coffee cup, and move that down. That looks more like what they have in the book. With the direct selection tool, I need to grab all of these and change them to white. We can select them all just by clicking one and then shift. Let's change this fill to white. You can see I need to move my iced coffee over just a tad. Oops. I moved my iced coffee over just a tad. Grab the selection tool, triple click on heading here and type in what is your favorite coffee. And let's go ahead and save that. So we now have made 3 different types of graphs. Now we're going to learn something completely new. So now go File, Open, and go get the other file that was in called Box. And let's center this. For this, we need to kind of redraw this. The client has given us this sketch, and we need to turn this into an actual graph. So we're going to use this perspective grid tool. Now, I have a lot of students who accidentally get this turned on, like you're looking for some other tool and you accidentally get turned on. And then they're trying to turn it off and they can't get it to turn off. Know that if you accidentally grab this tool, you have to be in the perspective grid tool. Then you can click that right there and it will turn it off. But we need it on right now. I just thought I would tell you that. That's always happening. People accidentally turn it on. So let's zoom out a little bit. Alt, scroll your mouse out. Now don't worry, I had to do this one several times because I don't work with this tool very much. It does matter where you grab it on the screen. So if you mess up, just undo and try again. And you may even have to close the whole thing down and open it up. It's a little hard to do, but once you get it, you're going to be really satisfied. So the first thing we need to do is we need to move the whole thing up so that it aligns with this. So grab this little dot down here and lift it up until that bottom point right here matches. And you might have to zoom in and make sure the center point is matching. This, of course, is a sketch, so it's not going to be perfect, but I've got it pretty much on there. So you need to have that lined up, and I grabbed right here before I did it. So we've got that lined up with the bottom of the sketch. Now we need to define these edges. So you're going to have to kind of be zoomed out, alt scroll your mouse. Okay. So we need to drag this side out separately from this one. So you need to grab this the vanishing point. And it means the vanishing point, it means that everything's vanishes there. So grab the orange one and pull until that bottom orange matches the bottom of the sketch. You see right here, that lined up. Now we need to do the same thing to the other side. Grab right here and drag down until the blue matches up. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now you see our walls are kind of going out too far. So grab right here and pull down until the wall is the same size. And we're going to grab right here and pull down until the same size again. Okay, now you can grab the very top tool and bring that down to match the top. And it's not going to be perfect because that was a sketch. So now zoom in a little bit, alt scroll, and grab this second white little dot. And we need to move it so that these boxes here, this bottom row, extends all the way up to this top drawing. So just click this and drag it up until that lines up with this drawing. So we're trying to get this line right here to match. And it matches pretty good on the other side. That looks pretty good. Once we're done with that, we're going to say View, Perspective Grid, Define Grid. And the only thing here is we're going to turn this opacity down to about 30% and hit OK. Now we've done all of this. If yours looks like this, yay! Let's save it. File, Save As, your last name, Coffee Producers. We can get out of that tool now. We're going to go grab the rectangle tool. And it should be in the default, if it's not, which is white fill and black. If it's not, click this right here. So white and black fill. And we need to deal with this plane switching. So realize that right now it thinks we're on this side. If we click to this, it's going to think we're on this side and the bottom, that kind of thing. So we're going to make sure that we're on the far side, which is the right side of the grid. And we're going to draw on that. Let's make sure we're on the right layer. So click on your Layers menu. And you see that there's one called Artwork. So click on the one called Artwork. With your rectangle tool, click down here to the lower right, click and drag up to draw a rectangle that's going to fit right there. And notice, because we're in that side of the grid, it knows to make it in the perspective that we have just defined. All right, now make sure that we're on the left side of the grid, and we're going to draw another one for right down here. Then make sure we're on this horizontal area, and we're going to draw one that goes on the top. Now go to View, Perspective Grid, Hide Grid. Looks pretty good. Let's save. With your selection tool, let's grab that top one. And we're going to turn off stroke. And fill it in with CCR brown. So let's grab our swatches panel. And once again, mine is kind of forgotten. Here is my chalkboard, AITT. So if you can't find what you had opened, once again, we would just go to swatches and load those swatches again. If you remember in the last one, I docked mine down here. So we're going to click on this one right here. We're going to make this one have no stroke. We're going to make it the darker. So back in the perspective grid tool, there's one underneath. If you right click it or click and hold it down, you will see the perspective selection tool. So if you remember Alt and drag, we'll make a copy. So we're going to select this one right here and Alt and drag and pull it up here to the top. So we now have two copies of that. And you can see that they're different because of the vanishing points. While we still have that tool, you're going to grab the path and make it the right size. And you can see it stayed in perspective. So let's change this to this. Let's change this to this color. And we're going to click and drag this down. Right click, arrange, bring to front. Ha! Save. Okay, this next part is kind of tricky. For those of you who don't have a mouse, I really don't know how you're going to do this. I've never understood you guys not using a mouse, but you know, if we click Alt and drag, it's going to make a copy. Well, that's right, but it's not on the side that we need for it to be. So let me undo that. You're going to Alt and drag a little bit to the left. Do not let go of your mouse. Click 1, and it's going to pop it over there. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to Alt, click, drag my mouse. Do not let go of your mouse. Do not let go of Alt, and then click 1, and it's going to flip it over to there. And I'm going to zoom in. I need to resize this just a little bit. There we go. That all looks pretty good. So now we need to make another version of this that's in a different color. So I have this one selected, Control C for copy, and then I need to say paste in place. So it has put another exact copy on top of it. You can't really see it right now, but it's there. And we're going to choose this color right here. And then we're going to size it down. So let's save. Hopefully yours looks kind of like that. Let's go back into layers and open up our design elements. With the regular selection tool, I need to select these coffee beans. So now go back and get that perspective selection tool and make sure you are on this left side of the grid, and we're going to pick it up and drag it over there, and it will drop it where it needs to be, perfectly aligned with the left-hand grid. You can readjust it now using that same tool that you're in. Just drag it down until it matches up with the side. So now we're going to make a copy again. We're going to make sure that we're clicked on that. Alt, drag over to the right. Don't let go. Press the 3, and it's going to pop to this side. And now we can line it up on this side. Now when I let go, I see it's just a tad too small, so we can just resize it a little bit until it gets there. There we go. I've got a little bit of a gap here, so I'm going to fix that. Perfect. So with this same tool, we're going to make sure we're on the left, go back to Design Elements, and grab this logo and click and drag it over onto that left-hand side. Now it's supposed to kind of fit inside the darker area, so you can click and drag down to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, let's zoom out and open up the data layer, which is on the top in the layers panel. We've got all this stuff over here. So with this same perspective selection tool, we're going to grab the right side. Click on this stuff and drag it and drop it over here on the right side. And we might make it just a tad smaller so it fits in here better. Now while this is still selected, you need to click on this button right here, which is the Edit Text tool. Because we see we have a misspelled word. So right here, India needs to say India. So there we go. So click out of this by clicking once and then again. That looks pretty good. Let's go to View, Perspective Grid, Hide Grid. Just realize this needs to be that different color. There you go. And of course, we can go and turn off our original sketch. We have finished. Control S. So this will be 4 things you need to turn in. Coffee producer's favorite graph, price graph, and reasons graph. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time.